Hello and welcome to another recorded training session for RPMS EHR. My name is Katie Johnson and I am the EHR Integrated Care Coordinator at the Northwest Portland Area Indian Health Board. Today we will talk about entering an adverse reaction. Time for my disclaimer. In all of these recordings, the database that I am using is a scrambled training database. It contains no real patient information. The data may look real, but it is not. Hello. In this video, we are going to talk about how to enter an adverse reaction. As you can see, I have already selected a patient and I am on their cover sheet. The adverse reaction component is usually found on the cover sheet. It may be somewhere else in your EHR. The adverse reaction component is what you want to find if you want to get more details about an allergy or an adverse reaction that the patient has, or enter a new one, or make changes to things that are already there. Basically edit any of the content. This is the component you want to find. So in this case, we have found a patient that is allergic to penicillin, documented here. So the first thing I want to do is show you what happens if you double click on an allergy. You get this pop-up box and it gives you the details of the event that was documented. Some of it is kind of behind the scenes technical stuff. We have some SNOMED codes in there, I believe, RX norm codes. These all have to do with standardizing information behind the scenes. So we're not probably very interested in that necessarily. But what we wanted to see here was, was there any more information here on, sometimes there is more information about a little bit of a story about maybe what happened with the patient, or even the type of reaction that they had or something like that. So the details are there if you double click. I wanted to point out each of the columns here that it will display, and you can adjust the columns if you want to for your own visual ease. We have the agent, of course. That's the agent that caused the adverse reaction. What type it is, in this case it's a drug. What the reaction was, in this case hives. The status column, I want to take a note on. In this case, this status is a verified. That means that is a technical verification. That's not a clinical verification. So that causes a lot of confusion for a lot of people. But in this case, what it means in our EHR system is that someone has looked at the adverse reaction and how it was entered and just made sure that it was connected with the right drug and the right drug class and that type of thing. And actually, with the way that improvements have been made with how we document this and how it's done on the technical side in recent years, some folks have gone to an auto verification system, and so everything that you enter is going to say verified, and that's okay too. The whole nuances of that is a whole other discussion. I just wanted folks to recognize that this status here, depending on your site and depending on your processes, it may say unverified, it may say verified, but don't worry about that piece if it's affecting your clinical decision making. That verification just has to do with verified that it was entered correctly in the background. Then the next column is inactive date, so that if there's one there, then it's filled in. So let's see if I right click, if I have that penicillin highlighted and I right click, I wanted to show you the options. We can edit something about the adverse reaction. Let's see what happens here. And here we get all the same choices that we get when we enter a new one, and we'll go through that in a moment. Here you could add a sign or symptom, you could change it, you could do whatever you need to do here. You could add some more details, some more comments. You might even be able to say, patient has tolerated something else that's closely related or something like that. Amoxicillin, for instance. And so sometimes you might question the nature of the allergy, and sometimes just some extra comments can help you decide if you're trying to decide what to do with this adverse reaction. And basically as much information that you can enter here to be helpful to the next user would be great. So if I click on my agent again, then I can see that the comments were entered, when they were entered, and what they were. So let's go back to it and go to our right click again. Also, I'm going to skip new adverse reaction for a moment and go to entered an error. So if you find out it just flat, whoa, that's not what I meant to do, you entered it in error, okay. And it would allow you to document why you're doing this, or just kind of verifying that this is really what you meant to do. And then you could say, okay, I'm not going to do that necessarily in this case right now. There's an option here, inability to assess. That comes into play hopefully more often in like an ER type situation. So the patient comes in and is unconscious or something, and you have no allergy history on them, you can mark it inability to assess, just so that basically documenting, yes, we thought about trying to gather this information and we couldn't. So now to enter a new adverse reaction, you come somewhere in the white space, you right click and go to new adverse reaction. Now you get this search bar. In this case, kind of a less is more if you're searching for something that the patient is allergic to. Let's say I wanted to say they were allergic to lisinopril. I'm going to type just a few characters, then hit search. Now kind of the rule of thumb is if you do get a list here, as we got, as you work your way down from the top to the bottom, you basically want to grab the first item on your list. It's the preferred item that is basically the first one you come down to. So in this case, we found one right away, lisinopril, that's what we want, we would click OK. There are other ways that it searches, and it's finding the same thing often, but like I said, the most accurate and the best way to document is if you choose, as you're working down your list, the first thing you come to that looks like what you want. So I'm going to say OK, and now we get this other box that's asking for a lot of information. So some of this is tied to the causative agent. In this case, we chose lisinopril, so it knows right away this is a nature of reaction is drug, and it won't let me change that. That's fine. Event code. These are standardized terms, and these are the only things you have to choose from here. Basically, the allergy to substance, drug allergy, drug intolerance, food allergy, food intolerance. Those are your main things that you're going to choose. In this case, I'm going to say it's a true drug allergy. The source of information, this is your list to choose from. Patient, spouse, family, friend. There's an other to kind of capture anything else. The signs and symptoms here. Again, so this is not a free text box. You have to choose from what you have to choose from here. As you see here, as I scroll down a little bit, there are these items that are above this line right here, and these are kind of your quick pick list, the most common things that happen when a patient has an adverse reaction. And then there's a whole bunch of other things down below that we can look for as well. You may also type a little bit here to start finding something that maybe you're looking for. And there are all sorts of things in here. So hopefully you can cover whatever kind of reaction the patient had. You find what you want. Use your little arrow here to move it over into the selected. As you can see, you may choose more than one thing. If you make a mistake, you can take things off by using the left arrow button. It asks you for when the patient had the reaction. Oftentimes we don't know exactly when, so you can go ahead and choose imprecise date and do the best you can. Often people default to January if they're making a guess about what year it happened, and that's fine too. And there's another source drop-down menu here, and that often can be confusing, but it can be the same source of information, or it can be different, and they just want to acknowledge that maybe one source of information, maybe the patient was able to tell you what they were allergic to, but how they reacted you might have gotten from a different source. So that's why there are two different source options there. They can be the same, they can be different. And then here we are with our comment box. And you can type in as much information as you want here, and then you can say OK. It takes a minute for it to update. This system is set to auto-verify here, so this new one that I entered right here, our lisinopril, is showing up as verified. That's great. And there we are. We have entered a new allergy. Now, a couple of other things that often come up, common questions, are how do I document no-known allergies? Okay, so documenting a no-known allergy can be a little bit counterintuitive. You might be looking for a button that simply says no known allergies, or something out here right when we're trying to enter the allergy. And then even if we right click, we don't see a no known allergies here. The trick is to remember you have to go to new adverse reaction, and then we find our no known allergies checkbox right here. Now that checkbox disappears once an allergy is entered. So it's saying, well, once you've entered an allergy, I'm not going to allow you to enter no known allergies, because clearly you've already entered one. So that is a common question. How do I enter no known allergies? First of all, you have to have a patient that truly has no allergies documented. Secondly, you still go to enter new reaction, and then you find your no known allergies box. Mark OK. And now we see it says no known allergies here for this patient, where previously it said no allergy assessment. Now, a few years later, patient does have an adverse reaction to something. You can always enter a new adverse reaction just like we did before. So one thing that comes up often is, how can I enter just kind of a general reaction to something? You know, a whole class of drugs, or something that the patient just isn't sure about the specifics on, but you want to document it. There are ways that will pull up whole classes here, like I typed SULF and I found sulfa drugs. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. I'm going to say that it was a drug allergy, that it was the patient, that they had a rash with it. I'm going to say it was an imprecise date, but it was not that long ago. It was just this summer. And the source on that was the patient as well. And I can add comments if I have anything to add. The other thing I want to point out is, then sometimes, you'll have a patient say, well, my mom says I'm allergic to penicillin. And they say, well, what happened when you took penicillin? Well, I don't know, but she says I'm allergic. Something like that, where you don't know what the reaction was. Kind of your catch-all term then is hypersensitivity for something where you don't know what the reaction was. So, and that can be kind of hard to find until you get that stuck in your head, or until that is listed on your site's kind of top 10 list here. Now this is controlled locally, what you want this top 10 list to be, and your clinical application coordinator can set that for you. So if you don't have, a common list up top here, or there are things missing from it, talk to your local staff and see if you can get it added. Now another thing that comes up is documenting other types of adverse reactions, like food or latex or things like that. So obviously our focus is on drug reactions, but there are other important, we want to document all the reactions if we can to get the most complete picture of our patient, and also because these other types of reactions can also have effects on our decision making. For this example, I chose strawberries. See, it knew again behind the scenes that this was a food. This agent is listed as a food. And then it could be a true food allergy, or maybe just a food intolerance. Things like that you can choose. And again, enter as much information as you can. One more type of allergy that comes up often, and that is the bee sting allergy, and how best to document that. And there are multiple ways you can document a bee sting allergy, and it possibly may need to be documented in more than one place. The advantage of getting things documented in the adverse reactions package is that that's what triggers order checks when you are ordering medications and labs and things like that, to know if you're going to have a problem. So the big focus is on drugs and drug allergies and a cross reaction between two different drug classes, things like that. So that is why it is very important to document the allergies as best you can. Now, bee sting allergies can be a little bit different as far as how they enter into the decision making. So sometimes they need to be documented both in the adverse reactions as well as on the problem list, because the problem list then can be used as your clinical indication, or maybe even your purpose of visit, and maybe you're prescribing an EpiPen today and it's for a bee sting allergy, things like that. But to enter it in the adverse reaction tracking, I just typed in bees. I'm going to choose bee stings. This one can be an allergy to substance. Seems like it might fit the best. And again, fill out all the other information that you can. One thing I had not pointed out that is common to all of these is this observed section. It's not very common that you actually observed the adverse reaction, but if you have, there's a little section here to document a little more detail about when and where and how bad it was. Commonly, we don't use that section. I believe that covers it for entering adverse reactions. Remember, it's important to get as many adverse reactions in there as you find with the patient, because they are very important with participating in our order checks, and also for information exchange. If the patient gets sent to another setting of care, we want the other folks to know that we have documented this allergy list. Thank you for listening today. Until next time.